Hi, this is Shane from NerdHouseGeeks.com. Still haven't finished that site yet. Today I'm giving advice to senior level developers, and this is surviving in IT. Advice for senior level developers: beware of the common practice of code bashing. Code bashing is a double-edged sword. Code bashing in the front of brand new senior level developers, I think this is a bad idea. And code bashing in front of junior and mid-level developers, it's the worst. Every company I've worked with in my entire career, there's some acceptable form of code bashing where you get to dump on either the code that's existing, the framework. This happens all the time. I'm accustomed to it happening, but I've seen how that really can hurt your team and distract your team. One of the mistakes I think that is made is that assuming that because you are bashing the code, somehow you think that maybe bashing the code makes you look smarter. That's not true. I've learned that it's a bad idea to bash the code when it is not a genuine critique of the coding style itself. I've had code being bashed during an interview, like while I'm being interviewed, like, oh, you're gonna, and there's an acceptable amount of this, but while I'm interviewing, this is just how common code bashing is. No one thinks about it, but I've seen it have detrimental impact on the team. Once again, code bashing does not ensure that your employees think that you're a smart person. Just because the XY framework is the common framework to dump on, that doesn't ensure that your employers see you as a smart person. It's not how it works. And we've all the senior level developers, we've all been guilty of this over and over again. And so what I'm mostly going to focus on is explaining how code bashing is a double-edged sword. And I'm going to focus on two areas: code bashing in front of newly added senior level developers. Believe it or not, this notion of a senior level developers, I really don't know how you definitively make the separation. But for people who desire the title of senior level developers, you kind of put it on your resume, you interview, and if you happen to pass that interview while you have that on your resume, that's what you go for. You say, hey, I'm a senior level developer as of the moment you hired me, with me calling myself a senior level developer. And that may be based on time. If you work at one of the big companies that are known for computer, like if you worked at IBM, Intel, every knucklehead that works at Intel, whenever they move to another company, oh, I'm a senior level developer, I've worked at Intel. I get it. Congratulations. Whatever. So I'm just going to go through an experience that I've had. I'm going to start with why it's bad to bash code when you have newly added senior level developers. I was in a meeting and we just added a new guy, senior level developer, of course. And I've had some years with the company, meaning I've had some experience. I've gone to war with this company to make sure product was up and going, and all of our new offered features were working and our customers could come in and get to buying their products and everything's going right. Had a year where I really came through for the company because I had just gotten there, and it was another one of those moments, baptism by fire, which I was very accustomed to being in because of a director I had back in the day. His name was Vince, and I had to work on a project, and boom, I had no experience and I was thrown into the fire. And I talk about that on another video, surviving IT as a junior developer. So I'm used to the baptism by fire. Thanks, Vince. Prepared me for all kinds of crazy stuff. I had kind of being like the guy, like, oh yeah, he delivered again and again and again and again. Another thing, I had built up some cachet with the company because there would be moments when, we needed things done. All the executives took off. Most of the programmers took off, a few of us. But a few of us guys, we worked through the night, and I would send emails in at 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. Hey guys, I'm done. When y'all get in there, you can take a look at it. And so, just a real go hard, go get a type of dude. Like, we need it done, I'm in. I couldn't do that every day, but because it happened periodically, I loved the challenge of it all. But I had earned some sort of respect for the people who run the company, and a degree of confidence in, hey, let's talk to Shane about it and see if we can get it done. And when you have established yourself, you tend to have a different kind of conversation with your directors and different executives, because they like, listen, you've earned it. So we had this new batch of senior level developers come in. The door rotates with programmers, for whatever reasons, move on. It's just part of the life. And some new developers, senior level developers came in, and they were like in a meeting with me. And of course, the VP of IT, CEOs, different executives were in this meeting, and we were making plans to do some major overhaul feature. And someone had asked for a high-level estimate. Damn high-level estimate. I wasn't thinking clearly at the time, and I gave an estimate like, I don't know, let's try 3 weeks. With that, if we're gonna be guessing at a high level, you guess. Any one of us can guess. The reason I had said that was because this code base that I was maintaining most of it was research and development, and you have to be very careful. It was a lot of what people were calling spaghetti code, and it was this and it was that. By today's standard, it's code that we're not trying to write these days. But in the time frame this code was written, it absolutely made sense that a group of developers you could tell by the code, like, oh, this guy thought you should do it this way. Then you look at the code and you go like, this guy thought you should do it this way. I don't know who these people are. I could just tell by the coding style that I'm like, okay, this is totally different. They interact, but the way this person wrote this code, the way this dev, none of this really matches. And you could have references in this code to a feature in another code that wasn't, they just didn't mesh well. So you had to be very careful making changes. And so that was my honest critique of the code based on how it was written and delivered, and it just made perfectly good sense. But my response to the estimate in front of brand new devs, senior level devs, was that that was not the best way to respond to that. Because when you have a relationship as an executive staff, they have their marketing metrics that tell them, hey, this is what our customers want. And when you have that rich of that many flavors of coding style in one massive website, it's hard to give a high level estimate, because this guy, whoever these group of people were, they wrote it this way. Okay, I can give an estimate if that's the code I run into there. And there's this other guy who created his own controls and has code in there that talks to the database, and the control, the actual user control, is 100% reliant on the database, and that's scattered all over the place. And it's like, okay, I have to look at that thing and consider all of its events when they fire and trigger. So, and then this other guy, he did everything in JavaScript, but they all just kind of so, and I had given estimates before. Some of them I hit early, some of them I underestimate and took a long time to build. And so we had already had this thing going on. So when I asked the question, I didn't really give it like an honest answer, a genuine like critique of the coding style. Like, so the senior level developers are watching me and other developers. I wasn't guilty all by myself. It was just a couple of us, as we chuckled about our work and what our workload is at. And so we began to set that precedence, not even thinking about, hey, these other guys have your title, and what they're seeing is how you're communicating. And this becomes, oh, well, I'm a senior level developer too. I'll talk like they talk. Because you notice when executives respect your opinion, and every senior level developer wants the same sort of like recognition, you know. Whatever you went through in high school, you will go through in corporate America. High school never ends. You just make more money than you did in high school. But that whole pecking order and people want their recognition, that's a psychological condition. That's not going anywhere. The whole purpose of high school is so you can get this blueprint and say, oh, this is going to go on for eternity. Okay? At least that's my non-humble opinion. So needless to say, at the time, because I didn't take that into account, it starts creating an environment, especially when you're the guy. Like, hey, talk to Shane about this, talk to Shane about this, or talk to Mark about this, talk to this one about this. Like, my team members were leaving, but those who remained were really, our workload was increasing as more guys were taking advantage of other opportunities, and our workload is going up, and we're like, bring it on, bring it on. So these guys were hired to take on that load, and because I had that momentary laughter of bashing the code, the other senior level developers, when they got assigned stuff, it became commonplace to question those executives in a mannerism that I didn't think it was acceptable. At the time, while I'm doing it, I'm sitting there going like, I'm not just talking to these guys because I'm being condescending. Like, we've been working on this product for several years. We've had a measure of success, a measure of failures, And failure meaning like, oh, that took longer than you originally said, Shane. I was like, I know. I really thought I had that one. But without them having that history, they're coming into the door, being invited into the same meetings that I'm in, but not taken into account. They weren't taken into account like, hey, there's some history here between these guys. They were looking like, oh, that's how the senior developers can speak. And so that's when that really became a bad idea, because poor performing devs had a built-in excuse. You know, they could go, oh, you know, this framework, you know, it's a bunch of crap, and you know, and oh my goodness, that happens so much. And I had gotten irritated with this nonsense. Like, every time you were assigned something, oh, framework XYZ, you know, it's a bunch of crap. And you could see executives were getting irritated about this, you know, because, you know, this framework which you're crapping on, it's still the money maker in the company. And so I kind of pulled the guy aside, and I was like, well, why are you calling it a bunch of crap? You know, like, you're bashing it, but why? What are you seeing that it's a bunch of crap? Because it took me some time to analyze it. The code wasn't a bunch of crap. It was written a certain way by several developers over how many years this code exists, and you have to be aware of all of that stuff. And it takes a couple of months of working on little things to get an understanding of it. Your third week in, I don't think you qualified to say it's a bunch of crap. I'm a smart guy. It took me a while to look at it and go like, oh, that's what's going on, okay? So here's what that senior level developer told me, said, the reason it's a bunch of crap because when you change something over here, you break something over here and you break something over there. And I'm just like, that doesn't mean the code is a bunch of crap. What it does mean is when you make code changes, you make them frivolously. Like, you have a title named senior level developer, but it just seemed like you're making code changes that you're not considering that this piece of code is being called from other sources. That's like junior level, mid-level mistakes. I'm like, what code are you talking about? The nature of his mannerisms changed. That's when I knew he was on some BS stuff. And I'm like, well, what code you changed? Let me take a look at it. Well, you know, I was like, nah. We're gonna look at this code. And we pull open the code, and I'm looking at part of the code. He had changes he had to make. He had decided that this already existing DLL, the code for this DLL, that he was just going to, in the interest of getting it done quicker, you know, I guess I would say that the code, you had to figure out what was calling what. And then I'm not sure what his analysis did, but he just added an additional parameter to a function, and it's a web page. And so when that function is called by the one button that he was looking at, he didn't even overload the method. I mean, none of this regular stuff you should, anyway. Calm down. None of this regular stuff you should do. He just literally added a parameter and said, hey, there it is, done. I pushed my button and my button worked. And I'm like, did you even check to see how much functions call that thing? It's like, nope. These are basic, like, don't do that. And please take that SR off the front of your title, please. Cut that out. I understand. Anyway, he had made that type of change, and of course, all of the code that referenced that function, because we were making these calls through web services. So he could compile and push it, and these two separate projects, I'm like, bruh, you that's the issue. You can't make that change. Not that way, not there, not like we use that function in multiple places. Like this isn't even, this is the kind of conversation I need to have with a junior level developer, not with you. I just, bashing the code doesn't mean you got any smarter, okay? Another downside to code bashing when you're one of the elite members of the team, and this is what I've learned from my mistakes, so I'm sharing. You also give developers, poor performing developers, a built-in excuse. I mean, the first thing he did was, once that code was pushed and things started breaking, he got to bash the code again. And I'm like, that has nothing to do with the code. That's just not taking the time to do the extra research to get the code up and running. And that's why it was kind of interesting, because I was laughing at the high level estimates, because I know that, okay, this code is running over itself through multiple methods of how this code is called. You literally have to do a search and get a count of how many places this code is used, and understand that there are independent web services that is not a part of your project that also calls that code. Like this thing was jammed together and it's generating millions of dollars. So you had a lot of people complaining in account services because of this disconnected, everything jammed into one. So you had to take your time. So that's one way it definitely hurts you, because you start creating a built-in excuse to respond to your poor performances. Code bashing in front of junior developers is the worst, because they're in this, and these junior and mid-level guys are really just trying to be impressive, earn their recognition, and they're really a carbon copy of what you set in the workplace. And sometimes these junior and mid-level developers can get really ornery because of your code bashing, and start attacking or being offended that someone said, hey, that didn't work, like and then start to like, it's because of this code. And I'm like, why are you telling an account specialist about that? They don't write our code. They want to click the button and get results. It's all you have to do is and so my advice to senior level developers: beware of code bashing, how you do it, who you are, who you're doing it in front of, because like high school, that thing can have a bad influence. And I've seen it get so bad that everybody just kind of went, this code is a bunch of crap. This code is a bunch of crap. It's like, not really. It's generating 20, I think this thing was doing easily 50 to 60 million a year. I mean, it's, it was, when I got there, I realized the people that were working with it were so frustrated that I'm like, first of all, I need to take the time to understand all of this, because I had made some changes and I'm just like, what? There's a different project that referenced this? Okay. So it really took time to like walk across all of this and to cultivate a framework of how to approach this code. Being a senior level developer does not guarantee you have the information that the more established senior developers have. You know, that happens in conversations, and when everything is a code red, I realized that those conversations weren't happening, and everybody was basing their critique based on the established senior level developers, and then some of the complaints had nothing to do with the code itself, just low standards for your own code. Like forget that the code is written in a certain way. You gotta have your own standards. I mean, to this day, if I have something delayed and I don't like the standard, I've told my boss, first of all, it's got to pass my standards before I hand it over to you. But that has nothing to do with the framework. That's on you. And I think code bashing, people who build frameworks, you know, they're building these frameworks based on a problem they're trying to solve that day. And as a business evolves and what it wants to offer for its features and its application, the framework will have to adjust. I've had people bashing a framework for a feature that was just invented that wasn't even in the framework. I'm like, okay, that doesn't even get to go into the framework. That's a separate, there's a process for what you stick into the framework. Like, we don't have to invent anything. All of this is already being figured out. Anyway, long-winded. One of these days I'm gonna hit like the 15-minute mark, but just beware of code bashing, and when you're one of the top guys, watch your mouth. Not like in a threatening, fist-fighting way, but like, be careful how you say it, how you communicate it, because I've seen this thing backfire, become a cultural thing. Bashing the code become a culture of the business. And again, I've learned that executives they respect results, not your complaints. Like, you could complain and produce results. And I think at that company, that's where I was, like, complaining and producing results. Like, oh man, this is gonna take a while, but I'll get it done. And you just complaining and not getting done, like, what are they giving you that check for? Like, you took on the job as a senior level developer, figure it out. You can complain, but you want to complain while producing the results that they want. Yeah, and that's it. Please like my video if you like it. Subscribe to my channel on YouTube, and thank you very much.